tree that is more green, and that's generally what our goal is for gardening, right? So it depends. I can't tell you exactly how much fertilizer to use because every fertilizer is a little different. So you need to read the bag, and it's going to tell you for a tree that has a caliper size of 6 inches, use some amount of fertilizer. Follow the bag instructions. It is a tree. It's a big plant. It takes a decent amount of fertilizer. Right, a couple handfuls is probably not going to do it. Right? Sometimes we do. If you think about it, we might do a handful for a rose bush, and a rose bush is this big. The tree is much larger, therefore it takes a lot more nutrients than a little rose bush, right? So throwing a decent amount of fertilizer around, but be careful. Every fertilizer is different, so that's why we say recommend read the bag and check and make sure that you're using the appropriate amount of fertilizer for the product that you have. These are great. We also have a slow release product called First Choice over there, $29.9. That's also a great 3-month product that can be used in avocados as well. We like these, especially the brown bag here. It has a nice soil, a nice humic product in there. It also has a water penetrant that really helps with soil moisture. If you have a more mature avocado tree, the flower and bloom product is nice. It's a little bit higher in potassium, which can help with fruit size and some other things like that. So you can make some choices depending on your tree. Citrus fertilizers are also a good direction to go. They have a little bit of extra micronutrients generally and some soil acidifying agents in there. So going with a citrus product is generally a good choice if you're at another garden center and trying to figure out which one of these fertilizers do I want to buy. If it says it's for citrus, it's generally a good choice for avocados. Frequency, the frequency that you apply it also depends on the product you're using. So once again, read the label. It'll say apply every 3 months during the growing season, or it'll apply every 12 weeks, or whatever it says. Generally follow that. However, the trees don't read the labels, so if you do it every 2 months instead of every 3 months, it's probably going to be okay. But if you do it every week instead of every 3 months, it's probably going to be a problem. So just take that into account when you're doing your fertilizer. You can burn avocado trees. They don't like a lot of salt in the soil. All of the fertilizers are salts, so it's a potassium salt or a nitrate salt or some type of salt. And if you apply too much, you will essentially salt burn your avocado tree roots. Also see this if it's next to like a pool. Pool water is also salty, right? Even if it's not a saltwater pool. Oversplash into planters, you'll see salt burn from that as well. So just keep that in mind. We want to try to minimize salt buildup in our planting beds. That's for all plants, but avocados are specifically pretty sensitive to that. And then frost. So we talked a little bit about frost. Frost is really a big thing that a lot of people deal with, and even if you live in Ventura, occasionally it does freeze, and you're going to see a little bit of frost damage on the outsides of your trees. If you live in a more inland area, Irus, Santa Clarita, Lancaster, those types of places where you have these consistent frosts. Some of the green-skin varieties of avocados are a little bit more cold tolerant. Jan's one that's also cold tolerant, but you can do things to help prevent frost damage from your trees. One thing is trying to keep a healthy, happy tree. Happy, healthy trees are more frost tolerant than sad, sick yellow trees. So we keep them fertilized and well watered and take good care of them. They'll weather the storm better. You can also what's called put a frost cloth over them. Put a frost cloth over them, which pretty much is putting a sheet or a piece of burlap or something that's going to not allow for air movement to go through the canopy at night, and that just helps the tree to stay more insulated as its own kind of dome that's just insulated on its own, as opposed to having the cold wind just travel through the canopy, and that will cause frost. So you can cover it with a big sheet. I've also seen people in like Fresno where they really like their avocados and they really are sad that they live in Fresno. That they will put effort into generating heat around their trees, so they might take their old Christmas tree lights, the nice energy inefficient ones, right? Because those are energy inefficient because they make a lot of heat, right? And you put your Christmas lights on your tree, and then you get fancy. You get a temperature sensor switch from Amazon. Plug them into that. You put them out there. You put your sheep over them, or your tarp or something, and then it turns on and generates heat. You make a little greenhouse in the middle of the night. So if you want to, you can solve this problem. I guarantee you'll find a solution on the internet. But so just be aware that frost is a major concern, right? So it will cause problems. If you do have a big frost event, we'll talk here in a minute, and we can just segue right into that. Oh, I have some other things here. if you do a big frost event, it can really damage your fruit production the following year, and we'll talk about that in a minute when we get to pruning. Heat production or heat protection, as we talked about before, avocados really don't like it super hot, so we want to make sure that we don't plant it on the south side of the house when we live in a hot area, and it's just going to get radiated heat off of the house and absolutely bake it. I did that to a tree, so you're not alone if you've done that also. But for protecting from heat, if it's going to be really, really hot that day, you want to make sure your avocados are well watered ahead of time, because you don't want them running out of water in the soil. You can also go out there, you can wash your tree off in the heat of the day. That'll help cool it with hopefully cool water from the hose, not the 1,000-degree water that starts the hose. Right? Hit it with some cool water that can help wash it off. You can also apply sun protection to it, like called whitewashing. You can take and you can spray your whole tree with like a really dilute white paint, and that'll help reflect some of the heat if you're in a particularly hot area. So there's lots of things you can do to help with that. Sun protection, that's my next note here. So the protecting it from sunburn can do that. Avocados, because they have this beautiful green wood here, all of this is shaded usually by the leaves, right? But when you have a lot of fruit on here, or your tree isn't particularly healthy, and you'll have this green wood can be exposed to sun when it's really hot, this can actually sunburn very easily, and that will cause permanent damage to the branch. And it doesn't heal very quickly, and it will always have damage on the top of the branch. It's very obvious if it's happened to your tree before. You'll see it on the top of the branch or on the south side of the trunk, because that's where the sun hits. So the way that we can protect from that, if you feel like you have a lot of exposed wood, and you saw that you have a lot of exposed green branches because it's the best crop you've ever had, because I started watering right, I started fertilizing right, and did all these things I learned at the avocado class. It's great. Got tons of fruit for this next year. Now my tree looks like this, and it's all full of fruit, but all these branches are exposed. You can go out here with a 50-50 or a 25-75 paint to water mix, and just spray it on. You can use your little pump sprayer. Don't use your herbicide one, okay? Because plants, they don't like herbicide, okay? So come with your insecticide sprayer if you have one, and you can spray it with a little dilute white paint solution. Give a little whitewash, specifically concentrate on the canes, and that will help prevent. It will reflect sunlight just like our old mineral style sunscreens, right? Get that white reflectance, and that helps out to protect the branches from the sun. Okay.
I assume you mean latex white.
Latex white.
Okay.
Yeah, water-based white.
Yeah, water-based. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The cheapest one you can get, the sample one at the store, the old one from the baby's room, the hallway color that you decided you went through the white craze. You still got all that, but you got color now. But you still have the white paint in the garage. That'll work fine. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So that's latex white paint. Don't use oil-based. It won't mix with the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then. Watch out for that. Okay. They also had in here, well, we'll come to that in a minute. Trimming. The avocado trees are fairly simple for the way you'll prune your trees. Keep them out of your way. That's number one. Number two is they really like to be pruned. So they grow very fast. If you have a happy, healthy avocado tree in your yard, you've probably seen this, where a branch will break because it had too much fruit, or you back the car into it, whatever it is, right? You break the branch off, and it immediately will shoot out a branch, and by the end of the year, that hole's pretty much filled in. The trees grow really fast. This whole branch grew this year, right? So it grows really fast. A mature tree can grow 6 to 8 feet in a year, easy. Okay, so pruning is really important. When we prune a tree, this is true for avocados, this is true for deciduous fruit trees, we are changing that root to shoot ratio. Now we have more roots for the number of shoots we have on the top, and that means we have more energy coming up out of the soil into our canopy, and that means we have more energy going into less fruiting area and things like that, which means we'll get more fruit and more growth. So pruning is really, really a productive practice that we do. So unlike in other fruit trees where we have this advanced strategy for how to prune, we want to get this open vase shape and all these other things we talk about for roses and cutting to the outside bud and all this, we don't worry about that in avocados. Avocados are a very simple way to prune. We do some height control, so bring the top down so that you have appropriate height for you to pick, and then we are going to try to keep it out of our way, right? Try to keep contained in whatever area that is. And then if you really want to, you can go, if you feel like you're at a good spot and you'd like to get more fruiting wood, you can actually take almost 15 to 20% of the tree and cut that all out, and then it will start regrowing into that area. And that will help you always have new growth. Avocados fruit on growth that grew the previous summer. So this will bloom in the spring for this particular tree, right? So we are going to prune our avocado trees in spring, is generally when we're going to prune them. In spring, we're going to prune them after the risk of frost is done. We usually say sometime after Valentine's Day is when we prune avocado trees. Depending on your variety, sometimes you'll have fruit that are ripe and ready to eat at that time. Sometimes you won't. But generally, we're going to prune at that point. If it pains you to prune off fruit that aren't edible yet, wait until you're done harvesting and prune at that point. Okay. But the general best time if we want to have consistent production is prune in early spring. The reason we say that is it gives you all summer then for the tree to grow back into whatever you cut off, and then that will produce flowers the following year. When we are pruning, we want to make sure that we are making space around our tree for that tree to grow into that space and produce flowers and fruit. So we don't want to just always prune it back. You know, we're going to always prune it back. Don't prune it back 2 feet to the exact same spot every year because you're just cutting off all of your productive wood. You need to have space for the tree to grow out, set flowers, set fruit, produce the fruit, take the fruit off, then you come back and you chop that off if it's in your way. So just make that, as you're making those pruning decisions, that's what our goal is, to make enough space so the tree can grow. So I'm going to say it one more time, that the flowers are produced on branches that grew the previous year in summer. So this branch will bloom in February, March, April of 2026 because it grew this summer, right? Okay, so if you come in here in, let's say fall when you're doing or winter when you're doing your deciduous fruit trees, and you say, you know what, I'm just going to kind of give this a little clip here like I did for my nectarine tree, so it's all just kind of tight and it's all pretty much cutting off all of your productive fruiting wood off your avocado. So that's not the same. It's not the same time. We don't want to do it at the same time as our nectarines and things like that. However, when we come in and maybe we'll do a summer prune on our apricots and our nectarines and our deciduous fruit trees, that could be a time that maybe it's okay to come in and do a little cleaning up and maybe do a little size, but you want to make sure you leave a decent amount of this newly produced green wood because that's where the flowers are going to come from next year. Any questions on that? I haven't asked for questions yet, but any questions on pruning because that's important. When? Where?
Like which location?
So it really has to do with your space and where you have room to kind of chop the tree back and let it grow back into that space. So it doesn't matter if it's here or here or here. It's really to do with your space. Avocado trees. Let's say you have. So my wife and I, we moved into our house 8 years ago. There's this giant avocado tree on the side of the house that was too tall. All the fruit were like 25 feet in the air. The picking pole didn't reach them. We had to, get them off of get them from the balcony or something. I don't know. It was terrible. So avocados, they grow so much, and we pretty much came in, and we cut the tree off at about 3 feet from the ground with a chainsaw, right? So we had a stump. Avocados are crazy trees. You can't do this with a sycamore tree. You cut a sycamore tree off with a stump, it pretty much dies and starts suckering from the roots. Avocado trees, you cut it off here, it immediately starts pushing new growth right at the top of the stump. It grows back. At this point, we have an absolutely beautiful avocado tree that is now 15 feet tall, and it's easy to pick everything, all the fruits down low. So it really doesn't matter where you prune it as long as you don't cut it off at the ground completely, right?
Wow.
So we call that practice called stumping. So if you have a tree, you can look into that called stumping. Most trees, we don't stump them. Don't go do that to your apricot. Don't go do that to your plum tree. Don't do it to you can do it to a fig, but don't do it. Don't do it to your orange tree. But avocados are crazy trees, and you can chop them. It's a very common practice. Let's say you have an old growth orchard down in San Diego that's been there for 100 years. Your trees look like this. They're impossible to pick. One of the things we'll do is we'll cut the whole tree down to about 6 feet, 5 to 6 feet. The stump on it's like this with branches like this. It's this big, right? It'll grow back in 3 years. It's back into production. And we 15 feet tall. Yes?
If you cut a large branch, not to stump it, but like you cut maybe a 3-inch branch back, do you need to put the white paint on it?
It's a great question. So our question is, if you cut a big branch, 3-inch, 6-inch, whatever it might be, do you need to come back and put white paint on it? Not on the pruning area. We're going to let that dry down and heal on its own. But if we cut a big hole when we take out that big branch in the canopy, and now sun can come in and sunburn the branches around it, then the white paint can be useful on the surrounding areas, but not necessarily on the cut branch, but the neighboring branches that are left behind. If you do decide to do large cuts like that, every branch, every plant, the way it grows is at the bottom of where the big branch comes out. Everybody can look up here at this tree. So it's a tree, it's a plant. Wherever a big branch comes in, there's this we call it the collar on the main trunk where it comes in. When we cut a big branch off, we want to make sure we don't damage that collar. That's the tree's natural way of healing. That's going to grow up over time and cover the area that was damaged. So when we make a cut, we want to make sure we leave 3 or 4 inches out from that collar. That part will dry down, eventually fall off, and the collar will close up. So when we're doing our cuts, we want to make sure we're not cutting in. We also want to make sure that when we do our cut, we have pruning tools, right? So here's our saw. Oh, I grabbed one that is not open, but so we have saws that are great, loppers, whatever they are. If you're using a saw, we want to make sure that when we are cutting a big branch with our saw, that we don't just start at the top and work our way down, because what will happen is that weight from the branch will snap the branch at the bottom and then rip the bark down the tree, right? We've all done this on accident. If you haven't, you'll do it soon. So the way we fix this is we do an undercut first, a little bit further out than where we want to actually cut. So we do a little undercut here, and we come on that further out, and we start doing our top cut. We'll get through that till we're about 60 centimeters through. That'll break. It'll hit that undercut, and the whole thing will just fall off. And then we can come back behind that undercut and do our final cut. So you're actually doing 3 cuts to take off a big branch. If you try and go with just one, you're going to cause problems. And if you try to cut from the bottom, because I can see some people going, no, I'm just going to go from the bottom, and just start, your saw will be a part of the tree, because the tree will pinch your saw, and it will be stuck in the tree for a very long time. So until you go get another saw and cut from the top. Okay, so little bottom cut, just enough to cut to the bark. Maybe depending, maybe it's a big branch, like we say we're going to cut this big bottom branch off here. Maybe we cut up maybe an inch into it, and then we go to the top. We cut all the way through, snap and fall off. Then we come back and cut behind, so we have a nice clean cut on that final large branch. Okay. Same thing if you're going to bring the height down. You can do the same thing with that, because those branches will also rip. In the back.
Yeah, what about the lower branches that are like touch the ground?
Yeah. So the question is, what do we do about the lower branches? Build the skirt around the tree. Avocados like that nice mulch layer around the bottom of our tree, and the skirt can really help to hold that mulch in place, especially if we're in a windy area where the wind's going to come through and blow all the leaves out from under our tree. We like those skirts to stay down. If it bothers you, it's your yard. You can take the skirts up and cut them off. You want to have a nice seating area underneath your avocado tree, whatever, that's fine. It's your yard, you do whatever you want, right? But if it's just out there, don't worry about it. We worry about that in some other crops, or some other trees like citrus and things like that. They can get some rots and things that can happen if the fruit are really close to the ground. Avocados can grow laying on the dirt, and they'll be a funny color, but they'll be perfectly fine as long as the pill bugs don't eat them all. Okay?
Yeah.
And other things, right? So really, those branches are fine, and honestly, I like to leave them in place. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I have a pretty big avocado tree,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm letting the old leaves stay underneath it. Is that
Yep.
okay?
So his comment is he has a pretty big old avocado tree, and he's letting all the old leaves stay underneath it. That's the ideal situation. Avocados, the best mulch for avocados is avocado leaves and avocado chips. That's what they like. If you're one of those people, that's fine. It's your yard. You can do whatever you want. But just make sure you replace it with something you like. Come back in with a nice, uniform, small textured mulch or tree trimmings or something like that if it really bothers you. But I would highly encourage you to change your opinion of avocado, how much you don't like avocado leaves, and let them stay, because avocados, because their natural state is to drop leaves and build that mulch layer, you will be battling avocado leaf drop your entire life. And if that's your retirement plan, that's great. But I have other things to do when I get to that point, so I'm gonna leave the leaves in place. And they really are, they're the best mulch. So yeah, leave them in place. That's the best thing you can do. Yes, sir.
Is there a time when the tree's too old, it's not productive anymore, or is it eventually burn out?
Yes, his question is there a point where the avocado tree gets too old? Is your goal to have fruit for you and your neighbors and your friends, or your goal is to buy a new car with the fruit off of your tree that you're gonna sell?
For home use.
Just for home use? Okay, yeah. For home use, no. The trees last forever and longer than I will be here. Sadly, you will not be here either by the time the tree comes out. So, no, there's trees down in LA that have been there for over 100 years. They're still there. They don't produce super consistently, but they still produce. They're beautiful trees. What can happen is the trees can get just too big they'll start looking like this if they, you get distracted and the avocado tree doesn't become your primary interest for a couple years. The tree gets big, it gets in the way, things like that. So they can be an unruly tree to have in the yard if you don't maintain them over time, but they will outlast most of us here. So yeah. Yes.
We moved into a house where there was an avocado tree, a young avocado tree that was planted, and the area that it was planted in was in a garden that had like a cloth and small little pebbles in the whole yard. And so yes, the leaves drop, but it's over all the little rocks.
Yeah. So her question is, she has a tree at the house they moved into. It was planted in a large garden bed that had wheat cloth underneath and the pea gravel on top, and the leaves drop on top of the gravel. And
It's been 3 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it doesn't produce any flowers or fruit.
yeah, and so it doesn't produce any flowers or fruit. So it's likely that something's either wrong with the irrigation or the soil health under there, because the soil isn't breathing, isn't respiring, isn't decomposing, isn't doing what soils are supposed to do, right? So that's not an ideal spot for an avocado tree. That's as you found out for 3 years, it's just kind of sits there, doesn't do a whole lot. You can try if you wanted to. You could try pulling back, saying a 6-foot circle around the tree, kind of cut back the wheat cloth and backfill with mulch and put a little border around it. Make it look real nice, so you still have your nice pea gravel kind of walkway area, patio area. But the tree's really going to want some space with some organic matter on top of the soil and not plastic and rocks. Fertilize, water, see what happens. Or make it all gravel. Put a tree that doesn't mind that, like a sycamore tree. Doesn't care where you plant it. That's why they do great in mowing strips in yards, out in the front yards. Put an olive tree, put something else that doesn't mind those conditions, and put the avocado supplements. So, or get a new one. You can't really transplant. They don't transplant very well. So. Yes, ma'am.
I have a healthy, awesome tree. I get a huge production about every 3 years. And the other years,
Yeah.
minimal.
Yeah.
Is that typical?
So her comment was she has a large, beautiful tree, and about once every 3 years it makes a ton of avocado, then it takes 2 years off. That's pretty typical for big, mature trees. One of the things we can do to try to get more fruit on the off years is pruning. If we do a consistent pruning program on it, where we make space and we force the tree to produce a lot of new growth, that will encourage more fruit more consistently. Because what's happening is the tree is growing. Let's start with it sets a ton of fruit. All of the resources that tree has are going into the fruit production. It's not growing any more new growth over the summer. It's not doing anything else. Okay? So it pretty much takes a break from developing new places to grow fruit. You have all these fruit, you're everybody's best friend in the neighborhood because you're dropping 5-gallon buckets of fruit off at everybody on the street, right? And then the next spring comes around, there's no flowers on it, so there's no fruit for that year. It takes that whole summer to grow new budwood, new flowering wood, right? And it finally blooms the next year. And then all of that, because there was nothing going on that whole year, because there was no fruit on it to slow the tree down, it grew like crazy. Made tons of budwood, and then, see where we're going here? Then all those flowers set, and then 3 years later, boom, we have this massive crop again. So the way we mitigate that is, one, fertilizing when we have tons of fruit. It'll make bigger fruit, but also help the tree to grow during that period. And then also pruning, which might be painful. We'll probably cut some fruit off during one of those big crops. That'll encourage the tree to have more growth to fill in throughout the year.
So I have a huge crop, it's still right now.
Yeah.
But in February, then I'll prune it. It's never been pruned.
Yeah.
So I'll prune it real well.
Yeah. Knock it back. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I live in Simi, so
Mhm.
you probably tell me it's the wind. I get, it's a new tree, so it's probably only like 8 years old, and it gets plenty of blooms,
Mhm.
it gets plenty of fruit, and then they drop.
Yeah, so her question is, she lives in Simi. She gets the tree looks great, it blooms, it sets fruit, and then they all fall off. So one of the big issues in Simi is the wind, but it's pretty obvious when it's a wind problem, right? Because it was super windy and then all your fruit are on the ground. So if that's it, then maybe trying to have some wind protection around it can be a thing. If the fruit are falling off earlier, it can be fertilizing. It can also be making sure when it starts warming up that the irrigation is kept track of. Because if it dries out too much during one of the heat waves, they'll drop their fruit. So that's another time that's kind of the silent killer where it's been really beautiful, and this happens every year here in Ventura County, right? It's gorgeous all through May. We get into June, the weatherman lies to us, and it's just supposed to be gorgeous, and then on Sunday, it just goes to 105 real quick, and everything freaks out, and that can stress out your trees and drop fruit.
Yeah, I also added more sprinklers.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that hopefully then it'll prune
Yeah, she
in
said she.
February and see what happens.
Yeah, she said she added some more sprinklers, and so that could help, but just, having good water distribution around is good, but then also making sure our frequencies are appropriate. And it could be both ways, right? Some people kill trees with love, right? They're like, I'm gonna give it more, and eventually you just have too much water, too much fertilizer, whatever. So just need to find that happy medium. Yeah, but Sini is a hard place to grow avocados. It's definitely the edge of that. Yes?
I planted a pit from a store-bought avocado, and it actually grew as trees.
Yep.
But will it ever bear fruit?
I'm gonna ask.
Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit at the beginning, was that seed's gonna be different than, it's not gonna be a Hass that you probably got at the grocery store, right? It's gonna be some other Hass cross, because the mom was Hass, and we're not really sure what else came in there. And it will grow. Avocados do this funny thing, it's called a juvenile period, where they grow for 5 or 6 years and don't flower when they're little, when they get up to size. So it's really depressing, because you plant the seed and you're like, where's the avocados? And sometimes it's 15 years. So it just depends on the tree, right? So if you've done that and you're like, I'm still waiting, it could be, it's just still working through this juvenile period. When we graft our trees, so all these trees are grafted, the way we make an avocado tree, we talked about it a little bit with Hass, but we do that for all the varieties are grown that way. When we graft that, since we're taking this piece of wood here, this tree is already in a reproductive state, and we cheat the system by taking a piece of wood that's from a tree that's already in a reproductive phase of the tree's life, and we put it on a juvenile seedling, and that tricks it, then it stays in a reproductive state for the rest of it. So my suggestion to you is, if you have this beautiful tree in your backyard that you are now emotionally invested in, because I get it, you've watered it, you've raised it from a wee babe, and watch some YouTube videos on grafting, go to a friend's house, get a piece of their Hass, get a piece of their lamb Hass, their gem, their blend, whatever it is. Avocados are fairly easy to graft. You cut it back, you do what they say in the videos, it's a fun next stage in your gardening career. So yeah, go look up grafting, it's a great it's a great species to learn how to graft on, is what I've been told. I don't know how to do it, but that's what I've been told. Yes?
So we have a tree that finally produced fruit after many, many years. And I really want this and avocado before the animals do. But I'm not sure how to tell when they're ready to be picked. I mean, it's a Hass, and I see that the harvest season is like October.
Yep. Where do you live?
In Thousand Oaks.
Thousand Oaks? Okay, yeah, so this is a great segue into this. I promise we'll have more time for questions here, but since this is a good segue here. So she said she wants to get her fruit, wants to know when her fruit is ripe so she can get it before the squirrels. So we'll talk about the squirrels and the dogs here in a minute, but I wanted to talk about when's the right time to pick, and then we'll circle back to the squirrels and the dogs, and the neighborhood children, and your not so childish neighbor. So in the back of your paper here, talk about briefly that avocados, there's thousands of varieties. We've listed a lot of the popular varieties here on the last page in the packet. They all have their fruit ripen at different times. Avocados are also weird because they're just weird, right? They're just not like anything else we grow, because the fruit will hang on the tree and be edible for a long time. Depending on the variety, it can be 4 months, it can be 7 months, it can be 12 months, depending on the variety and where you live.
Wow.
Okay, so it's not like an apricot where you walk out one day and you go, oh, it's apricot week, right? So avocados, they don't do that. You walk out, and as long as it's in this window and you pick a piece off, let it sit on the counter, eventually it will soften up and be edible, right? So as long as we pick it within that window. So being in, you said Thousand Oaks, right? So being in Thousand Oaks, that's a warmer area. It's going to be on the earlier side of the table here. So you can pick, a Hass fruit in February will be edible. It won't be great. They don't really get great until June.
Yeah.
But then it gets really hot in Thousand Oaks. So when we get that first really big heat wave in July, the tree freaks out and says, oh no, it's summer. I'm not going to hold this fruit. They're ripe, and it'll start dropping fruit. Okay, so If you live, so I imagine there's a couple people here from Ventura or somewhere on the coast, right? It's a little cooler there than Thousand Oaks. If you pick a fruit in January, February after hash tree, it's terrible because that area, your tree isn't quite as progressed because it's just a little cooler, it doesn't get as much sunlight. Same things like if you made the trek from San Luis Obispo or somewhere further north. It takes a little bit longer for the fruit to get to maturity, and then they'll be edible. If you live down in San Diego or further south, you get to have the pleasure of picking your fruit earlier than the people who live in San Diego, just because of how the weather works. Warmer, it's going to be riper earlier. So know your variety. It's important to know when it's ready. The foolproof way though is just go pick one. Let it sit. Pick a big one. Find a big one. Pick it. The bigger ones are generally more mature. Generally, it's not a rule, but generally, set it on the counter. Watch it for a week or two. Sometimes it can take 3 weeks to ripen up. Just sit it on the counter, and if it gets soft and is edible, hey, look, we're in the season. If it gets spongy and tastes like grass and it's terrible and your dog won't eat it, throw it in a compost pile and do it again because you just waited 3 weeks to figure that out, and something might have changed in that 3 weeks. So hopefully you have enough avocados on your tree that you can waste a couple figuring out when it's worth enjoying. Does that make sense? So it is possible to select avocado varieties so that you have avocados year round on in your orchard. I have found, however, that is too many avocados for me personally, and I like having a break before I get back into avocado season. I find that my varieties that are ripe in November and December just don't get used because I'm done having guacamole for lunch. So that's how you tell. So just pick a couple and see what it is. Yes.
I have two pest questions.
Great.
I have seen evidence of shot-hole borer, not a really heavy infestation, but a couple holes. And I also, so I don't know if there's any way to eliminate or reduce that, like if I put tanglefoot over the hole or did something like that. And the other pest question is, should I care at all about persea mites?
Sure.
Because even the orchard trees I drive by every day are full of persea mites.
Yeah, so she has pest questions, which are perfect because we should talk about pests now. And her first question was on a pest called shot-hole borer. It's a itty-bitty beetle that drills holes in the trunk. We were really excited about it probably about 10 years ago. Everybody was very worried about shot-hole borer, and then it turned out not to be as bad as we thought it was going to be. And it's a bit of an issue down in southern San Diego County. It causes some issues and has some vectoring of diseases and things like that. But if you're up here, where do you live, I guess?
Santa Paula?
Santa Paula. So yeah, it's not a problem here. It's pretty common to see little holes in the trunks, little nicks, little things chewing on it. And it's very obvious. Avocados, they weep out of any little hole in the bark, and it produces this white, fluffy exudate around whatever a cut. You'll get it. You'll get this white exudate. That's sugar that's developed from the avocado sap that's come out, and it has evaporated, and you've made sugar on the outside. Actually, it's a sugar unique to the avocado family, so no other species makes this. It's like a 5-carbon sugar. It's a very odd, weird biochemical sugar. You can taste it. It tastes like weird, sweet sugar. I don't know, I've done that. It's kind of a fun thing to do in your backyard. So next time you've had 3 beers, you're like, he said I could taste it. And you can go taste the sugar that's inside your avocado. But it's not something to be concerned about. You'll see it too when you cut branches and things like that. So shot-hole borer, not a big deal. It's also really hard to control even if you wanted to, so not a big deal. The next pest was persea mite. Persea mite is a microscopic mite. It lives in a colony on the undersides of leaves, generally right next to the veins, and they make these little dead brown spots on the leaves. You've probably seen them. They're really tiny. They're about maybe 1/8 of an inch in diameter. Little brown spots, generally right around the veins of the leaves. Also, not a big issue generally. It can be an issue on baby trees. They like dusty conditions, and they like stressed out trees. So if you have a sad tree next to your dirt driveway, probably going to get a lot of persea mite and might be a problem and worth doing something about. If you have a happy, healthy tree, not generally an issue. If the whole leaf is then it's a big when they show up, and when it gets cold, they grow persea mite, but then it gets to 105, all the persea mite die. and then it's not a problem. So that's proceed mine. The other issue, coming back to the question before, is squirrels. So I have my friend here. I brought him up here because this is usually the number one problem. Him and this guy and his close friend, the rat, tree rats, are a big issue with avocados. There's no good solution for either of those problems. I wanted to tell you that. The cats are a good option. Your neighborhood cats hopefully will help, but squirrels and rats are can be devastating avocados. Trapping can be helpful, things like that. But there's no, you can't like put a cone on your trunk that stops from climbing. It's just all those things. These guys are far too smart and far too hungry for you to have some type of mechanical exclusionary device that protects your avocados. I've seen some people that will go and bag individual avocados. That does work if you want to have 15 avocados in your life and you spend a lot of time protecting. More power to you. But generally what I've found is you lose. So trying to trap them out of your yard, and otherwise it might be challenging. If you back up to a nature preserve that's just loaded with squirrels and things like that, good luck. There's no good option. So that's squirrels and rats. Gophers, on the other hand, you can play the gopher game. Gophers also, they kind of like avocados, I would say. They're not their favorite thing to eat, but they will eat avocados. If you have, let's say, an avocado orchard, 15 avocado trees, there's nothing else around, they can be a big problem. I like these gopher hawk traps. I found these a couple years ago. I really like them. I like them because I don't have to dig them up to see if I was successful or not. It just tells me. So it's pretty fun. They come with this poker stick. You see a hole, and you go, new battle to start here with this gopher friend that just showed up. So they have this little poker. It's not for poking the gophers. This is not how this one works. You poke around until you find the tunnel underground. So if you have rocky soil, you're out of luck on these. You can't use these. But if you have a non-rocky soil, you poke around. Oh, there it is. You can feel it underground. It went into the hole. You put it back in this guy. You poke a hole down so you have a hole accessing the tunnel, right? And this guy goes in here. Push it down. It sets. You shove it down into the hole. Read the instructions because you can break this stuff. The gopher comes through here. There's a little trigger there. You see kind of dangling down there in the bottom. And then it pops up and it catches the gopher. The fun thing is, this sticks out of the ground so you can see when you got a gopher or not. So you can walk out in the yard in the morning with your coffee and like, got two. It's a good day. Right? Okay. So, I like these.
You know my husband.
Yeah, so you met this person before.
I've met this person.
Yeah, so yeah, the key is when you put it in the ground, you got to pull up on the bottom, not push down on the top, and that makes it so you don't smash the noose into the ground, and then it grabs them. Another nice thing is, because you poke this little hole, you pull it out, you go, yep, that's a dead gopher. You kind of push it off, you shake it off, you shove them back in the hole, and you cover it up, and you're done, right? You don't have to go figure out what to do with the dead gopher. So I like these. We have them. They're not cheap, but they're fun, and they're very durable. And the nice thing is, if say you do break the noose, you can buy a new noose for like $6 or something like that. So they're fixable. So that's my favorite gopher thing. Also, the McAfee traps in there. Those also work great. The classic ones for gophers, but really trapping is the best thing to go for gophers. This is called the Gopher Hawk. Yeah, so I like these. I think I have 5 traps that I rotate through. And
Recommended.
One poker. Recommended. Yeah. Okay. Yep. See, I love the little. I have professional growers that use these because it's so nice. Because you just drive to the orchard and you're like, look, that one's popped, and you pull it out and you go take it on your merry way. And they have good durability, and it's a good product. Yes. What's a complement plant to the avocado? Avocados don't make friends very nicely because they drop a lot of leaves. They make this mulch layer underneath. So in close proximity to the avocado trees, they don't really get along well with other things, shade plants and things like that underneath. They don't really get along great. If you have a really big one, sometimes you can get away with shade gardening underneath it because there's enough space under them that everything works out fine. But generally they are an orchard type tree where they're kind of out on their own, or they're in a mixed bed, but they kind of have their own space within that mixed bed, and then you're kind of planting outside that sphere of influence from the avocado tree. It really has to do with that mulch and then the tendency to grow very low to the ground.
And so what is the space you should give
Yeah, so her question is, how much space should you give an avocado tree? I think it's going to depend on how frequently you prune it, how aggressively you prune it, how much space that tree needs to grow over time, and that's going to change as the tree matures. So, if you want to plant some rose bushes, 6 feet out from your baby avocado tree you just planted, maybe gives you 2 or 3 years, and then that avocado tree is going to be up in your rose business here. But the nice thing about roses is you can take a shovel, you pick them up, and you put them over there, and now your roses are over there instead of over here. The avocado tree now has more space. So I think that you're just going to it's going to be a dynamic process until you figure out, okay, I can keep this tree kind of in this space, so now I will do this over here with the rest of my plantings. So one more before I jump back into pests. The last pest I want to talk to, unless somebody else has another one, is avocado thrips. Is another one that's very common in avocados. It is a little tiny insect. It chews on the little baby avocados, and it kind of makes it look like, rusting, or kind of makes it look like a potato on the outside. If that really bothers you, you can spray Monterey Garden Insect Spray. Is a great product for that. It's an organic option. Unless you have a crazy avocado thrips population where your entire fruit looks like a potato, it does not impact the fruit at all. And for backyard growers, I recommend just doing nothing. Just let them ride. You'll have some ugly fruit, but they taste just as good on the inside. And it's more work to go out and do a pesticide spray, so I'd rather not. But if you do want to do it, we have these are the best thing for spraying trees. This one's made by Chapin. It's a hose end sprayer. You put the pesticide in here, it automatically mixes it. You hook it up to your hose, you blast it like 20 feet into the tree. Get really good coverage. You're done in like 15, 20 minutes. Takes you want to get the hose entangled, and it doesn't spray the tree.
And you could use that for the paint too.
You could use it for the paint too. Yeah, I've never done that, but you could. Probably have to water the paint down a little bit to get it to suck up in there, but you could. Yes.
Back to the insects again.
Yep.
What do you think about using the beneficials for Persea mites?
Her question is, what do you think about using the beneficials for Persea mite? Persea mite is a weird, very tiny mite, so most of the beneficials have a hard time handling it because it's very, very small and it's inside a web. However, you could use it. Some of the generalists will feed on them. However, if you have a happy, healthy ecosystem in your backyard and you're not doing a bunch of sprays and things like that, and it's not super dusty and your tree's not stressed out, Persea mite should be a very minimal concern. It probably isn't worth bringing in outside beneficials because you already have your natural population doing its job.
Now, one more question. At the base of the tree, this is an old tree, about 50 plus years old, there are growths like mushroom type growths or barnacle things that are growing around the base of the tree.
Okay.
What are those?
So our question is, at the bottom of our tree, there's things growing around the tree that kind of look like barnacles. It could be a number of things. Is it a fungus that's just
It looks
there?
like a fungus, yeah.
Or is it some weird bark thing going on?
No, it looks like a fungus.
Looks like fungus. Because avocado trees have this happy, healthy microbial compost pile going underneath them, it's very common to see fungal growth coming up, and it's not a concern. None of those are. Nothing that makes a fun big fruiting body like that is interesting from like a pathogen standpoint in avocados. Avocados do get some root rot pathogens, and a few other pathogens can be problems, but none of them do that. Yes, sir.
If you were picking a dwarf variety, you were going to keep it in I'll say a 25 gallon, or let's say one of those wood containers. Would that have enough root area? How high would you let it get? You're looking to get, I don't know, 20 avocados or 30 avocados on a season.
Yes, his question is, let's say he has a large pot, 25 gallon, like a half a wine barrel or something like that, right? That we want to stick a tree in. What selection would be it? I heard somebody over here said gem. I agree with that. It's one of the better dwarf varieties of avocado. There's a few others. The back half of this book is made up of short descriptions of the 15 or so common avocado varieties. Several of them are labeled as dwarfs. Some of them say they'd be good for pots. If you kind of keep it in this general size world, it'll be fine. Eventually, pot plants just run out of gas because the soil decomposes too much and the root system doesn't quite have the space it wants to keep going, and the tree kind of eventually just kind of goes into this slow decline over time. You could try and reanimate it by kind of pulling it out, adding more soil and like that. But in that big of a pot, you're talking that's probably gonna be like 6 years down the line, 7 years down the line. At that point, you should have gotten several crops of avocados off of them, and trying to do some of those things would probably be
So when you
fun.
pick it, I look at the trees behind you, those are what, 2 or 3 years worth of growth?
Yeah,
Okay, would you pick something like that thinking you're gonna get, like we said, a few avocados rather soon, rather than picking something like you have out there where they're much smaller and younger?
yeah, so his question is, should I go with a big one like this, or go with a little one in a little pot? If I was going to put it in a big pot, well, let me back up. What you're buying when you buy a big tree, you're buying time, right? We've invested the time to grow you a slightly larger tree. So, this one is a year older than the one in the 5-gallon pot. The one in the big box might be 2 or 3 years older than the one in the 5-gallon pot. So you're buying yourself time. So that's a value decision that you get to make on whether you want to shortcut the system and kind of jump ahead the line a little bit, or you want to grow it out and do it yourself, right? There's also obviously a cost associated with that. For a big pot like that, I might go with kind of this, a 15-gallon size or one of the small ones. It's also going to depend on what's available, because sometimes we have the best selection in the 5-gallon size. Not everything makes it into the bigger sizes, because either we suck because we don't buy enough of them, which thank you. We appreciate it when we run out of things, so thank you for making us run out of stuff. But not everything makes it up into the bigger sizes. So that's kind of how that works. Yeah, thank you. So 1 second here, let me just make sure I think that was it. It's the last thing, and then we'll go into general question time. So I think we covered it. The last thing is, do I need an A-type and a B-type? So this is a very common thing you'll see in avocados. There's an A-type flower and a B-type flower. So let's just talk about that for a minute, and then we can go into general question time. So what this refers to is avocados. Weird, again. And they have this, so their flower opens. They bloom for a very long period of time. So they produce flowers generally from somewhere in February, March is when they start blooming. They generally end in June when it starts getting hot. So this very long blooming period. They bloom prolific bloomers. They have a nice yellow flower, very small flower. They bloom. It's actually on the front of the flyer that we sent around. I don't have a picture of it. Nice yellow flower, prolific bloomers. It's actually quite a nice flower. It doesn't have much of a scent, but on a cool, humid day with no wind, you can actually kind of smell this sweet smell that comes off the avocado flowers. And it generally need like foggy conditions to get that smell. So they bloom. A types open. I believe I might get this backwards. I put them in here for myself. No. So A types. I might have this backwards. I can't remember because it's not really all that important. But I'm going to tell you the general concept. A types open in the morning. Let's say they open as female, and they close in the afternoon, and then they open up the next afternoon as male. Same flower. Reopens, so it opens twice. B types do the opposite. They open up in the morning as male, close, and they open up the next afternoon as female. So the concept is, if you have all A types, past is an A type. You have all A types. Conceivably, you can have all the flowers are open as females. When they all close, they all open again as males. And there's a problem, because you can't make fruit all females or all males, right? That's not how this whole thing works. So the idea is we throw a different type in that opens, and then we have male and females open, and males and females open in the afternoon, and everything works, and the pollen moves around like it's supposed to. In reality, though, they don't watch the sun very well, and some of them start closing at 11, some of them start opening up at 2, some of them open up at 10 as a male, and they're not supposed to be, and so you get this crossover. In addition to that, the pollen's floating around the environment, the bees are running around doing their bee things, and the flies are doing the fly things. The pollen is moving around, right? So what we see is if you live inland, you get much more discrete opening and closing. If you live where it's sorry, the tree attacked her. We'll have an HR discussion with the tree later. And then if you live on the coast where it's foggy and things like that, the fog really confuses the tree. Sometimes it opens. They have huge overlap. So, moral of the story is it important? Not really. If you find an A and a B that you like, yeah, do it. Like, that's great. Like, then if you do have some weird season where the trees actually figure out how to tell time properly and they all sync up properly, you won't have this weird problem. There's been some issues, like gem is one that's had some issues that likes to be cross-pollinated more than others, it seems. But generally across the avocado world, it might help, it might not. That's kind of where the research lies on it. But they, once again, just this really odd plant that does this really weird thing that we get to talk about and say, wow, our plant's cool, they do this really silly thing. So that's kind of, that's A, B, and we have it listed on here if it's an A or a B type, because some people find it to be incredibly important. I don't lose sleep over it. I have one reed tree in my backyard and it produces fruit just fine. There's no avocados within 12 yards of mine. Okay, and it does just fine. So I have friends that have full orchards of Pass. They don't have any pollinators nearby, and they make avocados just fine. I have other people that swear by it, put one every 5 years. So, your choice, your garden, you decide.
So I bought the jam over here. Do I need a pollinator?
So her question is, she bought a gem, does she need a pollinator? So, maybe, I think is the answer.
So what
But any of the bee types would be pollinators for gem. I personally like Fuerte is my favorite pollinator for a bee type, but there's a bunch of others.
What about the holiday?
I don't even pay attention
They're
to
both flower.
Holiday is also an A type, so that would not be a cross pollinator of,
I would use it dwarf though because they have.
yeah, so it's hard.
Would you recommend?
There is not a dwarf. You know, it says little Cotto is a dwarf bee type, so maybe that
Which one?
little Cotto. I don't know if we have it.
Is that a pollinator?
It is a pollinator. Yep, that's what it says. We do have it. We have 7, it says. So yeah, so I think that's kind of where that is. If I get this question once, I might head this one off in the past. If I could pick 3 trees, what would be the 3 that I would plant in my backyard? I have a reed, really like it. Reed's a great tree. It's an upright tree, produces these large cannonball size fruit, thick skin, green skin, which is a little annoying for some people, don't like the green skin feature, but it has a thick skin like a Hass, very delicious, and small seed. Great tree, love it. And it also fruits, there it is, look, there's a reed, she brought one, that's awesome, those are bigger than mine. Looks good, yeah. And yeah, so, and then I would also pick Lamb Hass is another great variety of fruits starting in July is when it harvests. It's an upright tree, big fruit, good flavor, holds fruit into December if you're in a moderate climate. And then the other one would just be Hass. I think Hass is a great tree. It's a great fruit. It harvests, I picked all A's. The student learner here, I picked all A's. I don't have a bee type I particularly love. I like Surprise is good, but all the bee types generally have thin skins, and I hate getting avocados out of thin skin varieties. I just hate it. If you're an avocado peeler, maybe you like it better. That's a thing for some of you that might not have heard this before. Some people peel their avocados instead of scoop their avocados. I'm an avocado scooper, and scooping thin skin varieties is very challenging. So, yeah, some people do that. Isn't it crazy? I don't know. Does anybody here peel their avocados? I should go the other. Okay.
I have a bacon.
Proud. So she's a proud.
I am a proud bacon owner.
Proud bacon. Okay, yeah. So that's good. Zutano's a really common one. Bacon's really common. I like Surprise is a good bee type. That's one of my favorites, I would say. It's got a good flavor. That one's also fairly frost tolerant. So if you are here from an area that you were dreaming about growing avocados in Santa Clarita, Surprise, Zutano, Gem, those would all be great choices for your area. Yes, sir.
I have my Fuerte right now, the regular shape avocado.